Kids to take my time in. Apex predator. So treat me like a barracuda from outer Belize water, or like a polar bear from outer Alaska. If I'm a snake, then call me a black mamba. Apex predator. So treat me like a barracuda from outer Belize water, or like a polar bear from outer Alaska. If I'm a snake, then call me a black mamba. Apex predator. So treat me like a barracuda from outer Belize water, or like a polar bear from outer Alaska. If I'm a snake, then call me a black mamba. Apex predator. So treat me like a barracuda from outer Belize water. Apex predator. So treat me like a barracuda from outer Belize water, or like a polar bear from outer Alaska. If I'm a snake, then call me a black mamba. Apex predator. So treat me like a barracuda from outer Belize water, or like a polar bear from outer Alaska. If I'm a snake, black mamba. Right now we sit down on top of the food chain, over vast territory, and I'm mandarin. Serengeti, one of my domain. If you don't find no bones, then we take the blame. Concrete jungle, rugged terrain. Look at the color and the size of my mane. We no play close.
Yes, Mr. Joey. All right, testing 1, 2, 3. We're live already. We just to wait by your general. All right.
Yeah, Jamaica.
Yeah, they just yeah. You know that boy goes sometime, but we're all right, man.
Yeah, man. You come out of the shower after that.
Yeah. Move the camera again to your left, you make a sunny. Next way, sorry. The next way. Yeah, right there, center, your center right there. Cool. I'll pull you off. When the boy come on, I'll pull you back on.
Come on. Go ahead.
Please.
Lone wolf when with the scout, or with the pack when with the prowl. Check the size of my incisors when I growl. Relentless pursuit, separate you from your crowd. Even if you have to run up on the curb. King, no master we deserve. Track you through your third.
Remember, John know the funny run there again, you know what I mean? So, as far as I know, so all the people in make sure we'll be joined by the panel in a leave while just breathe easy. Hear what they say? Respect. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Remember we're down Wednesday night from the entire. And Saturday we're doing entertainment show, so yeah, check in for that too. Alright, bless. You done that there?
Respect
all the time, star.
Listen, Joe, I'm going to say you usually send him by email, but you didn't send him today. I see you already live.
Yeah, Joe about.
Alright, good. Joe, you get on? Alright, wonderful.
Alright, the line, look for let you go, you know, because you know, got things you know to do, so.
Well, we on anyway.
Yeah, we on anyway. I plug them boy in as they come along. So
respect.
Have a great show.
All right. Good evening, people, listeners in YouTube land, and those who are live now. Some of us with us on Facebook. I am G. Michael Reed. This is our weekly Sea Smoke show. I'm joined, as usual. Now he keep on saying he only guest, but he is a regular panelist now. The Honorable Joe Cowie, former Minister of Government, and now objective commentator. I have to say that because talking to the man, I realize that he has no He's not holding the reins of any horse in this race at all. He wants to see better for the country of Belize, and I think we all need to get to that point. How far are we from that, Joe? Participatory democracy, as you would say.
Well, I think we must first look back, Mr. Chairman, at where we came from yesterday, where we were yesterday. And then we can look at where we are today, and then from that, I think we can shape where we envisage to go in the future. But let's quickly look back at yesterday when we really thought back then that if we were to get independence and we have control over our resources, it was expected that there would be shared prosperity. Now, I think today, in looking back and trying to make a determination as to the extent to which we may have succeeded, it is my humble opinion that while we made some success, I prefer to judge our achievement against what we could have done. I don't subscribe to the mediocrity thinking that while we made progress and be complacent with that. I think we need to ask ourselves, could we not have done better? And if we are sincere with each other and we agree that we made some progress, but we could have done better, now we need to know why we didn't and what we can do to make that happen.
Joe, before you go on, we made progress in what area would you think, as it pertains to the involvement of the people in the governance of the country?
I think the period coming into the government of 64 was when we began to really sort of nationalize the country. Okay. In the sense that, let's look at what were one-time cane cutters. It is in that period that we begin to make them into cane farmers. That to me was a progress. We had the marine resources, which was one time controlled by the foreigners. Come to Belize, our fishermen will catch the lobster, sell it pretty cheap. Sometimes some used to pay $1 per bag. And then we make laws. The cooperative movement was legislated to ensure that now the fishermen will become owners of these resources.
Okay.
I would say, just to mention those two areas, we did make progress. I saw where there was beginning to be the opening up of the country through infrastructure with roads. I saw where we begin to have more schools. In other words, the country is a sparsely populated country, which brings a heavy overhead on the governance of the country. And we begin to have to build roads, over 400 miles of roads. And those are the main highways, not to mention the feeder roads. So it was a challenge for a population of less than maybe 200,000 then, over 8,000 square miles, to connect us up to each other. It was a heavy cost in infrastructure for roads, in schools, in hospitals. So we began to look and we saw where we were able to reach out into these areas with roads and some of the basics. So in those areas, I would say we did make progress.
Yeah, all right, the area health. What do you think? Because we've had lots of complaints of that. You were a former Minister of Health at one time, were you not?
Yes, I was.
Do you think we made strides in that department?
We did make strides, and I think that one of the unfortunate things with us is that we still not come to terms with understanding the importance of democratic efficiency, which simply means that you cannot have fundamental education and health policies, fundamental to those two basic needs. And every time there is a change in electoral cycle, there is a change. No, that will not work. Now, we started the diagnosis of the health system under the Esquivel government. And I must give him credit. I think it was a job well done. So when we came to office in 98, we took that diagnosis and moved to the next stage to design our new health system. That was done. And then we started funding, which we got much of the funding from the Inter-American Development Bank, matched by our own funding, of course. And that was when we began to implement a community-based health system. which I think was one of the best still in the world.
NHI?
Well, the NHI was a way to finance the system. There were three main things to every health system, to every system for that matter. One, we had to provide the methods to provide those services. And then we had to be able to provide a way how we're going to buy those services. And then we had to find a way to finance the purchasing. The NHI was a method that we used, that we adopted that from Canada. The health system itself was more patterned off of the Cuban health system. And that was, I would say, a very top-notch health system in the world. Even the Americans recognized it. So we took more of the community-based health system, and then we took the NHI from Canada, which we thought was the best at the time to finance the health system. It's unfortunate, I must say, and this is where I have some serious concerns about the failure to entrench in our way of governance what I call and what we are recognized in the world to be democratic efficiency. So there will be differences as government change in certain areas, but you cannot have such fundamental differences. For example, we had already signed all the contracts to roll out the national health insurance to every part of the country because we only had it in the south and in the north side of Belize City. We were to take it to the west, to the south side of Belize City, we'll take it to the west, to the north side of the city and the north, Arijwa, Coruscant. And all the contracts, after a lot of studies were done, the Cubans again were very helpful because we never have enough healthcare providers because they were mostly PCPs, we were called the primary care providers. But the Cubans were extremely helpful, and they decided that they would bridge the gap because it was we were to have 4,000 to each PCP, the primary care provider. But we never have enough PCPs at the primary care. And the Cuban government helped us with that. Mm-hmm. And then we signed contract with them for scholarships in health. That as our locals, Belizeans, begin to become qualified and come back, then we'll begin to fill the gaps that was closed by the Cubans. But again, when we lost in 2008, unfortunately, all the contracts were canceled.
Well, all right. Well, you talk health, and we get lots of complaint. Let's look at national security and crime and the way police are handling things. How are we doing in that department? Have we improved in that, or as we have grown, we've had more problems or bigger problems that we can deal with? How do you see that?
I think the problems that we are witnessing, partly, yes, it has to do with law enforcement, and I will speak on that. But the challenge facing the law enforcement is simply because of the failures generally in the society in terms of our sense of values. But I would say that there has been some good policies or good concepts that have developed. I think I had a conversation with you not long ago that when a certain commissioner of police came back from the UK, he came back with this idea that was not new to the world, but was new to us, which was the community policing. And we had hope, I had hope at that time, that while they were focusing on community policing, which is extremely important, they would have built along with it the need for intelligence, and then tried to remove from the recruitment the political influence. Because again, when you are dealing with a merit-based system, you have to be looking for the best out of what is available. But if you find that you can get into the public sector simply by maybe a letter from a minister, that again is what undermines the kind of efficiency and effectiveness that we need in the public sector. So here again is that the systems that we had designed, the systems that we had developed never did fail, in my judgment. We just didn't comply with them.
Well, I don't think we've followed up on the community policing concept either, because I remember when I was there, we did have quite a few in many areas, the neighborhood watches, which was a part of that whole community policing aspect of it. And I believe the department still has a community policing department. but I don't know that the whole concept has been followed through in the way that it was designed. You saw the paper. Are we seeing anything being implemented that is anywhere close to what that paper outlined?
Um, this is a part of the same problem I referred to earlier, the issue of continuation, succession in terms of policies that are fundamental to our way of life. Is that maybe when a particular commissioner or a particular politician is there, then these things will be adhered to and they are developed and they are implemented. And then there is a change. And when that change comes sometimes, and most of the time it seems, what comes is not what we need. What comes then is we begin to resort more to a sort of patronage system. And it's the patronage system that is creating much of the problems in the public sector. Because we end up with destroying the neutrality of it, we end up with destroying the meritocracy of it, we end up in destroying the permanency of it. And these are fundamentals to an effective and efficient public sector.
What is interesting, Joe, is that you're pointing out a lot of areas in which the government is deficient. I mean, they're not uh, on par with what is necessary to make the country better for people to be served well. Um, what and now we have a PUP government in place, and you've been there. You're still a PUP, I'd say, right? Would you do you still consider yourself a PUP?
Well, I believe I will remain a PUP in terms of its philosophical anchor, just as I believe I will remain a Roman Catholic in the sense of its doctrine and tenets. But I cannot be a PUP simply by saying that I will follow a leader or leaders who moves away from that philosophical anchor. If they move away, that doesn't make me the PUP. They no longer are PUPs, but
Right.
they stand
That's it.
and hail themselves as PUPs. When you are a member of a human institution, especially a mass based institution, churches are mass based, just like political parties. And yes, you will have your fanatic at the base, and they all have them. But you have to have a philosophical anchor. You can't, have a sort of flavor of the week policies. What suits the party this week is okay because it's benefit from entrenching them in government and to win elections. When in fact that was not the simple purpose as some believe. The idea indeed is to bring the best power that you have.
Hmm.
And we need to ask ourselves, I mean, I think if you say you are a UDP, I don't think you should say you're a UDP because of Philip Wilson. And if you say you're a PUP, I don't think we should be saying we're a PUP because of Mr. Price. I supported Mr. Price because he believed in the same things that we believed in. But it's not the man himself that you were supporting. You have to be supporting the doctrine and the tenets of the movement.
Yeah. Let me say good night first of all to Janice. Janice is in the show from Jumpstart Project, one of those projects doing the best they can to bridge the gap also and to assist people in Belize. One of those diaspora projects that are making a difference. Good night again here from Mr. Adolphus Carlos Garcia. We have some regular listeners checking in now, and we appreciate it. We look forward to whatever comments you might have. I was waiting for the other guys before I did this, but I need to do it, Joe, because last week we were discussing the matter of. I see you still on the news with the exhibit room keeper and the marijuana lace candy that was given to the kids and made 30 of them sick. And I had not heard the minister's comments. You had mentioned about it. I must say that after listening to it after last week's show, I believe that the minister was on target with what he was saying. He pointed, he fingered the exhibit room keeper as the person, and he said that they would be doing an investigation and looking into it. I still have the problem with that, in that many times well, we hear it every time but rarely do we see any results of these investigations. It's not like they come back to the people at a later time and said, "Well, listen to me. See this story that came," but we move so fast from story to story because right now we are already into other stories. But I must say that I have to clear the record on that one. That I was suggesting that the minister get misinformed from time to time, which he does. In this case, it doesn't seem that he was. However, Gregory Morrison, and I was hoping he'd come on early, did make a point that the exhibit room keeper could say, "I dumped that in the garbage," but it could be another story. So I hope that's a part of the investigation as being looked at. But I would hope that at some point we will get some kind of closure to that and know what's going on. I've heard Chester saying that it's difficult. He don't know if there can even be charges filed against anybody. But at the very least, there was gross neglect there, don't you think?
What I cannot get clear, except that I think the minister made mention of it, is that the gatekeeper, the guy who was in charge of securing these exhibits,
Right.
apparently did it almost arbitrarily. Because if you have an exhibit, and I think we all should know this, you would familiar very much with it.
Yeah.
You cannot discard of that exhibit until you get the go ahead from the appropriate person.
Correct.
The appropriate person going up to the top would be the DPP
Yep.
once you're engaged in a case. All right, the case is over. The DPP makes a decision that evidence we can discard. We no longer need it. But I don't know how he arrived at that decision that he was to discard it, and that is what I'm not clear on.
Yeah, and I don't think that you could look past that because then how many we've had too many cases go down because of exhibits that have not been available when they went to court. Um, this I don't think we can just look past that so easily. We have to do something about it, and I would like to see the investigation be more thorough than that than to just suggest that we can't do anything about it. You see what I'm saying?
I fully agree with you, Mr. Chairman. The truth about it is that this to me is a very serious offense.
Yeah, yeah,
Because if you can take evidence and arbitrarily discard it, man,
yeah,
you should be sentenced.
yeah.
Because what you are doing, you are undermining one of the fundamental things of
The
justice.
whole justice system.
Of course. And I think if this should, and you are making a very good point there, because you said something just now, which I think we should come to at least reckon with. We tend to romanticize the breaking news. Boy, it's all over the place. This happened. But we not follow up on what eventually the outcome. I have seen personally, I was involved in cases like these, where they were romanticizing the breaking news because it was salacious for them, it was delicious for them, so to speak. But they never did gone to the outcome, the final outcome, and found out what happened.
Oh,
And while I will not just put the responsibility on the media to do it, because it's all of our responsibility, but it is one of the things that I would have hoped that the public relations officer or some other person would be able to be keeping track of all these things and to be able to come back and report to us. No, just don't tell us about when it happened. Just don't tell us that this happened and we're going to investigate it and we're going to go to the fullest extent. We don't want that now to be. We don't want to hear the outcome.
yeah. I maybe we need to demand it.
That's right.
We the show is going to be interesting because we were expecting to have the former minister for the UDP, Edmund Castro, who had suggested that he would be dropping in and speaking with us for a while. He has apologized and would like to reschedule. So let's see how that goes. It would have been interesting to see you and him kind of like exchange a few thoughts and comments. But I think we have to wait for that. So if those of you who were expecting to see Edmund this week, You will see him next week. It was Labor Day weekend, Joe. We had our event in the park, and I must say that we were honored to have your presence. You sat there and watched the ball game with us, and tell them about that ball game. How exciting, wasn't it? Yeah,
I really got more than what I expected.
yeah, it was. It was.
Man, I never remember when last. I was a football fan more than I was any other sport.
Uh,
But I have not sit down and watched people at that age play the way they did. Man, they were warriors on that field.
they were playing good, and they went down and came back,
And they really played.
and eventually. But you know, Joe, I believe that five-a-side football is the smaller field
Uh-huh.
and the lesser players that are way over the future. I believe that people will be able to, because you can sit there and watch the whole plays as they develop and everything work. Where on the big field, you can't, as close to the action as that. So I think that one goodly micro.
Well, if you allow me to, Mr.
Uh,
Chairman,
uh,
when I saw, the team I was supporting, and I
wait,
got a little bit worried because the other team had become very aggressive and they were just loading it on. And then I saw a shift came. And when the reverse came, that's when they scored that goal.
well, I hear you. The holler for the guys. Keep the momentum. Keep the momentum. And
And
they,
but can I say something else to this?
please do.
Does he like Mr. Chairman? I wanted to congratulate you. I'm not going into any details in the congratulation, but I want to highlight. We were talking about community policing. What I saw there that day, I didn't see no ministers of government. I didn't see no mayors. I didn't see, these citizens where people tend to want to believe their presence is what gives status to your events. What I saw there were the people of the community. And I saw the way how they were assimilating, how they were integrating, how they were shaking hands, enjoying themselves. That is what this country needs, especially this city. We need more of this community type effort to bring people together. And what I sensed while sitting there, and I wanted to highlight this, I asked myself, if there was not a Charlie Burton Park and there was not an event like this today, where would those kids be?
It's a pertinent question, and I'll tell you, that is the objective, Joe, to get people together. And I think if we could get communities together, then we could get a sense of camaraderie between not only the kids but the grown-ups also,
That's
and an
right.
involvement in making communities better for us to live in. We spoke about crime, and we see a few sensational murders happen over the past month, and unfortunately, because for a while it seemed to be cooling off. There's a young man who did a wonderful job when he was working with the young people, Mr. William Dawson. I don't know if you had met him, but he unfortunately passed away. Um, Another person who passed away that was instrumental in that also was Fitzroy Wood. But I tell you something about Fitzroy, because when you talk about intelligence, Fitzroy himself was a database. He had intelligence, and most of the criminals out there, and that he was a big loss for the police department. He was also charismatic, so people would. It was believable when he gave the details of incidents. I think people kind of looked to him and had. And there are a couple of things you and I were discussing. They assumed he was telling the truth, so and that's important. But the crime situation, I think the only way we will address it is from exactly what you have been trying to promote, that community involvement. The people, only the people can save the people. And I remember seeing that somewhere. I think Evan used to use it a lot in his comment in his from the publishers and whatnot. But the people have to get involved, Joe. That's where the neighborhood watch what concept came in there, and I have not seen that anymore. So
But
yeah,
I fully agree with you because I think that what happens in the cradle will determine what happens in the nation. In other words, the reshaping of a human person, some believe it begins in the womb, but let's not go that far. At least it begins in the cradle. And if we can begin to shape them there, but how do we shape them there? We have to get out of the vicious cycle because obviously many of our parents, unfortunately, some of them are just biological parents. They are not parents in the sense of taking on the responsibility of shaping the children. But again, I mean, I was said this to you again. What I saw I saw young and old there on Sunday or Monday. It was young and old, and they were parents, and it was glad to see they coming out to give support to the kids.
You made a comment that struck a chord. It was interesting. You said that the old generation is going, but the new generation has not arrived as yet. Explain that to me, please.
Now, what happened? I had a discussion with some of my colleagues. They are my friends, and they are much younger than I am, but they are my friends. And I was trying to point out to them that I come from that period of, I'd call it the pre-independence period. In other words, it was our generation that was in the vanguard of the movement to bring them to the promised land. Now, I think the torch is being passed to that new generation who must take us now to develop the promised land. But I'm finding even among some of our professionals, whether in engineering, architecture, plumbing, there is not that kind of discipline and commitment to do things the way it ought to be done. Surprisingly, simple things like we meet at 8 o'clock, some coming in at 8:30. Those who make the effort to be there at 8, I mean, you are disrespecting them. I'm just using the simple things like those, and then they begin to add up. You did not inform the client or the customer that something went wrong where you couldn't deliver and the service or the goods. You don't seem to have given enough concerns when you are developing a project that you have to look seriously at the people who the project is being developed for and to try to get them to participate to the extent that they can to make sure that they are getting what they thought they need. So I saw a lot of glitches and whatnot in the generation that is supposed to know, take us and develop the promised land, so to speak. So we don't need to. We can look into the institutions, all the human institutions, not just political parties. But when you look at even the church, and I said this to my colleagues in the church, I sense a leadership crisis there. You look at the trade unions. Look at Monday, the 1st of May, when workers of the world were supposed to be uniting. Where were our workers on Monday? This was their day. Are they not no longer giving any significance to celebrate the dignity and the esteem and the value of their work to human development? And these are the issues.
Somebody suggested that also respect, that indeed the children, the young generation now have no respect for anybody. There's a time when as children we couldn't walk on the street and meet an elder and not bid them the time of the day. Just the respectful. But you see these kids today and they look upon you like, and not even an intimidating way, You extend to them the greeting. You say, "Hi, what's up? Good morning." At least a nod, and they look upon you like just blank, nothing. And where is the respect, Joe?
Well, Mr. Chairman, let me tell you of my experience in my young days. Most of us had what you call the neighborhood shop. A neighborhood shop. That's where you go to buy your groceries. You buy everything there. You go to that shop and you don't bid the owner of the shop the time of the day. That report will get back to your mother. So they will get the first calling from him. Usually that the mother, although that the father is there for you, of course. And boy, I want to tell you what, they will put it on you. Just for not telling that man the time of the day. You don't pass people out there without giving them the time of the day. You open doors for your elderly people.
Yes.
You open doors.
Respect.
You're opening doors.
Respect.
And it is the kind of respect to me that, it is wanting today.
Well, you know, there's a school, and let me say good evening to my good friend Ernest Brannan, a man they call Bandigo, Bandit. There's a school that's apparently doing something right, and Ebenezer up on Barracks Road, right by Habet.
That's right.
And this is the second time I've gone to Senor Coconuts, make good food over there on Barracks Road, and by the time I reached the door, one of the kids in the uniform run up and grab the door and open it. It was such a pleasant surprise. And I'm saying, son, I'm proud of you. Thank you very much. But this is the second time a child from that school have done that to me at that spot. Usually people they knock you over regardless of what condition you're in. They don't worry about that. Then look for get where they going, and they're all about a selfish looking out for me. And you if perchance you're in the way when I could do you only favor and do it, but they're not going out of their way to do anything like that for somebody else. I've seen people where I open the door for them to enter and then just walk in again with a blank expression as if, well, that, and I usually will tell them, I don't work here, no, or something like, you're welcome. So they understand that I mean, there's something that needs to be said. Now, Smoke say opening doors for women is frowned upon in these times because of several reasons. You'd have to be with us and give you a couple of those reasons. I don't know. I think women, and I'm going to touch upon this while we're here. Because women have been on a quest for equality. They want to be, if just like you then, and I think they want big problem because until we can bridge that gap between male and female, both created, they have different roles, but they should be equal in status. But I think there are things that a man does for a woman that does not mean he's putting her down or anything like that. He's just saying, well, this is my role. I am the male here, and as the female, I appreciate you. Nobody can question that when you there's someone who is strong, but overall, they would have to be considered the weaker sex. So I believe men have an obligation to do things like that for a woman, and I mean that's something that adds to the whole aura of a good relationship. Open the door. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. You're good.
I don't think that the opening of the door that I was talking about is not necessarily opening a door for a woman. It's opening the door for a person who is usually older than you.
Yeah.
But to me, we did it at the time out of expressing an affection for somebody. So if I do it for you, and the community is doing it for each other that way, it's out of an affection for each other. If you didn't open the door, you see, it might not do any harm to you that particular time. But when you ask yourself, I'm only using the opening of the door. What about the man or the woman, the elderly person, drops it back on the street, and you used to run to hurry pick it up? The person is struggling and trying to get up the bridge on a wheelchair. You go there, you hurry go there and you help. You have to hold up the traffic you do it. These are things we do out of affection for each other. We look to help each other. The opening of the door is only one of the many things we do for each other. We look after. It's simple being your brothers and sisters keeper. Love one another as he loved us. That's what we are doing. And these are symbolic of the affection we want to share with you.
Yeah, and indeed that's a different thing. And I was following up on a comment that was made by one of the viewers, but yes, indeed, because and like I said, that those children impressed me from that school, and apparently they're getting good guidance. They're getting proper guidance from that because when children learn, and in fact more from example, I believe, because somebody say they don't always listen to what you say, but they always watch what you're doing, and they'll emulate it if it's done well and it's gotten across to them the benefits of doing right and the detriments of doing wrong, and why they should do some things as opposed to others. But I don't know if the generation gap has not widened to the point where the elders are not even taking the time to talk to these children, Joe. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I believe that some of the values that we had in fact cultivated in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I sense that among people of my, not my age group, because we were from that whole generation, but I see people who no longer see these things as something of value. They don't. And the point I am making is that if you do not have some kind of philosophical concept of how we are to live, that is extremely important. And I think you would agree with that. We should know how we are to live, because how we are to live is the ideal that we aspire for. And then you look at your reality, and the reality is not the way it ought to be. So your social problem is between that reality, which should be unacceptable if it is not one, and these ideals are your philosophical anchor, the way it ought to be. And that is how you aspire to close the gap and to create a better society. Is that you have to first have that philosophical anchor in your life, in your country. This is what we believe in as a people.
But that comes from somewhere, though. That you have to. You don't just. That's not a. I don't think that's natural as such. You don't just come up and acquire it. You have
Yeah,
to learn it. You have to see it in action. You have to be instructed. It has to be a part of the education system, and this might be the problem.
well, to me, it's an extremely formidable challenge, but it's not impossible. And why it becomes extremely formidable? Because when we had the virtuous cycle, it's like when we had the house with all glass windows, lot of glass windows. There was a time when if you break that one glass window, that will be addressed immediately. It will be fixed and you will be punished for what you did wrong. Eventually, it began to change. One glass window was broken. It went unpunished and it went unremedied. Another glass window is broken. We have broken too many glass windows, and it moves us from that virtuous cycle to what now I believe is a vicious cycle. Therefore, if we are to go back to being the civilized, respectable society we should want to be, it will be extremely difficult because we have allowed it to go too far. We have, in a way, insidiously saw what was seeping into this country in terms of the level of corruption, the level of poverty, the level of crimes. These were not things that just happened overnight. They were happening for some time, but we were not paying enough attention until when it seems that they reached the negative tipping edge. And that
Uh,
is where now, for us to get it back, maybe we need 1,000 Charlie Burton Park right now.
well, somebody they put up right here, Mr. Joe. What's the pros and cons of having GOB getting involved with a park such as Charlie Burton? Um,
Well, I would like to answer that question, but I think I'd ask the chairman to leave the stage.
ah,
Because the chairman doesn't like to be, he's a man who doesn't like to be lauded the way I would like to. But the truth about it, we need more of that type of concept in this city. We need more of it. And I'm saying that the government involvement of having job getting involved, to me, it's not something that we should wish for. It's imperative. It is within the remit of government. It's not something that you should be asking government to get involved. That's the imperative of the government to be involved. That's what we elect them for.
Well, Joe, I always set out to do something that would show itself. And what I mean is that I didn't want to go to government and say, please help me do this. I wanted to be doing it and have them see it. And then I can say, well, can you help me continue this? I have not been, but you kind of ask for pros and cons. And I can tell you there are lots of pros. One of the pros is that this neighborhood is a lot safer now than before this park was here. You still have incidents. You had somebody killed a couple days ago, and in fact, it was a concern that maybe it would have affected our program. And we decided, you know what? No, we are going to go ahead with this. We're not going to let anything stop this. Our May Day tradition is established. So we had the event in the park. The cons that I don't see any con as far as except the people not getting on board and it not being emulated in other areas. I'd really like to see something like Charlie Burton Park in more neighborhoods where people are retired. People can come out and do something constructive, do help to get the message across to the children that life is a wonderful thing. You can't just approach it as if it's just, it's a gift, a wonderful present. And when I hear kids at 18, 19 saying they don't care, they don't worry about life, they don't care what happened to them. And I'm like, son, do you know how much living I put in between even later years of 30, 40, 50? How much enjoyment I had that time? And they look at you and say, "Oh, you old man, you don't live your life." I am still having fun. Even in doing this, I am still enjoying life. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and not have it. It's a precious gift. And they don't understand that.
I fully agree with Mr. Chairman. If you look at firstly, it is a constitutional imperative of the government to support a project of that kind. That's a fact. It is their responsibility to do. But what brings the economic wisdom to it and the good sense, acumen, is that when you have from among the community people volunteering without being asked to be paid, it is simply because the person doing that gives him the intrinsic gratification that he does it well because he has a passion for it. You don't have to pay to have a passion. So to me, the people behind these community projects who are doing it without asking for a penny, government is losing out on a human being coming out of a community with a passion for wanting to help. You cannot pay for that, Mr. Chairman. That comes as a gift from that community.
Let me say, Joe, I need to thank people abroad who help, because most of the financial help, comes from abroad. This lady did well. The mother of Ding, the young man, Brian Richardson, she made a little bit of money that she was able to put towards those hospital bills that piled up. But I want to thank Vanessa Jenkins Young, who has always been helpful. And when we ask for things like that abroad, she makes her account available that people over there can. This time, actually, we only sold 24 plates to people abroad. And that is we're hoping for more. But fortunately, we had some walk-ins over here, and the lady did well as far as the selling of that. Now, we were able to pay the bill for the band and whatnot. The band came by. I don't think you stayed for the band, did you? You weren't here for the band. You left after the games, after they were over. But the band played and whatnot, and I didn't see, and the community, many of the people also from the community did not stay around for the band. I wanted to see a crowd around the band, and that did not happen. So, but I think we're not gonna give up, and I find that many times events like these, people prefer a DJ. This modern generation prefers a DJ than a live band, and I find that unfortunate because there's nothing like a band playing music, and there aren't many left out there.
Well, Mr. Chairman, let me share something which was my experience in politics and in life generally. We as Belizeans at home and abroad must say firstly, that's a very good idea, the Charlie Burton concept, and it's a community-based idea. If you see tomorrow, we begin to get more of us. We don't bring government in, we don't go back to them, we don't ask them for anything. Enough Belizeans are at home and abroad that we can look to another place to spread your idea to another part of the city. And then as they begin to grow and they begin to realize there are a lot of voters now participating, and you begin to sense that by look like they got some control over these people, they will come. And it's then you will close your doors. They have to pay to come in. For the reason that the minute they sense people are coming together, not for any partisan political reasons, simple coming together out of concern for each other. When you have a bond like that, my brother, that is the kind of bond that can move any government because they are concerned that you are getting close to a lot of voters. And it's not that you are going out there spewing any kind of partisan propaganda for either side. The point is that the only time you can move a government is through a movement by the people and of the people. That is what bent them to the will of the people, which they have to be doing. And I'm saying that generally, I'm not singling out any party as such. Is that if the people who has the power and delegate authority to you to manage our affairs, and you sense that they are not giving what they're supposed to do, when they begin to realize that there is a movement of people coming together, not against PUP and UDP, a movement of people coming together to look after their interests, there lies the power. There lies the power.
It's a very important task we're faced with, I believe, and that is creating a generation that will take over and do what is necessary to keep life going, and not only being good but getting better. I don't know that we're taking that responsibility seriously enough.
That's right.
And a sad situation, and we have to try to do the very best we can with as many as we can. I would really like to see the same type of program, because you made the point, and my son was the first one who made this point to me. He said, "Dad, where would all these children be if this park did not exist?" And I said, "Son, I don't know, but I'm just happy that it's here that they come in. And once they play together, Joe, they grow together. And many times they get so tired they play that they don't have time for the mischief that is abetted by night." They again too, I believe that an innate desire aspect of life is competition. We compete. It's natural. We on the show, we compete with one another. You're out there in life, in the workplace, you compete with one another. You have political parties competing against other. We need to compete, but we need to organize constructive competition, which is why sports is so important. Like that game yesterday, those guys, some came from Yabra, and some came from another area, and there's a team that comes from an area they call Jerusalem that usually comes in and play. But we had 4 good teams. 'Cause the two teams that lost their first games were also good out, but those were 4 sets of young boys that were able to play together. Many of them, while the teams themselves play together in different areas, playing with different guys from different areas, and I think this is what has to happen, and more of it. I see they're doing something at the new Berger Field. We have to promote sports, Joe, because we need to compete. If we don't have constructive competition in place, we will have destructive competition in place, where there will be on the street competing with these guns and weapons and whatnot. So I think that's something we have to look at seriously.
I agree that it's competition that does breed efficiency, no doubt. But when you look at some of the other benefits from sport, and you cited out the other day, you have the case of the victory with humility. The team that won and that day, they accepted victory with humility. They hugged the other side. They received their trophies. They received their medals. But they were friends.
Yeah.
You can see that. So to me, in victory, it teaches how to be humble in victory. It teaches you how to be resilient. You get knocked down, you lose, and you get up and you go again, knowing that for you to succeed, you must fail. So so many virtues that sports bring to us, how we can be against each other in competing, but still be good friends and care for each other. The discipline it brings. There are so many things about it.
I think the losing team was gracious in the
That's right.
loss also, because there was you could see no animosity,
That's right.
no
Exactly.
problem at all. And yes, it went very well. We have to do. Yeah, go ahead.
What you notice, remember there were prizes.
Right.
People, they buy Bolida and lottery, and then they cuss out each other when they don't win. And they reel up with the person who play the lottery. What you saw there again is that if you are competing for something material, some cash with that trophy and whatnot, you don't figure if you lose, boy, look why I lose all time. No. They did not show any animosity, as I said. There was no jealousy, there was no hurt, there was nothing. There was a companionship.
Interesting you brought up Bolido, because that's our lead topic. Now how do you look at that? What do you think should be done? What do you think will be done? Should it be given back to a private person, or should the government run it like before?
I never believe, I'm not against the concept of privatization as a form of economic organization for a country. But there are certain things that I believe that we should never have privatized, not at this stage of our development. No. When you look at the amount we Belizeans spend, the rich, the in between, the poor, we do spend a lot on gambling. You go to the casinos, you see the same thing. Now, to me, it has always been floated in the past that the government should retain control over the lottery and run it themselves, and that the proceeds be earmarked for social services, for example, health, education, but particularly health. That was how we had hoped.
But Joe, we heard that in the casino. That was the excuse they gave.
That's right.
To legalize gambling for the casinos. That it was the money was supposed to go to education. Has any gone to education and the casino has gotten?
No, I think that the revenue continued to go to the consolidated fund.
Interesting.
I believe so. I don't know if there was another fund, it would have been in the budget. If there was a development fund, because the law under the finance does provide for different funds. So the fund that we use the most is the consolidated fund. So now, if we say that we want the proceeds from lottery to go to a specific purpose, maybe health, then it doesn't go to the consolidated fund. You develop a fund under the law for it to go to for the purpose of health.
Now you said that you're in favor of some privatization. What are some of the things that you think ought to be privatized?
I can say this now. I mean, and I just I said with national television, yes,
Yeah.
I had never supported that privatization, and I think they all know in the cabinet that I was the one who was strongly against the privatization. And I am repeating, not because there may not be need to privatize, but at the stage of our development, all of those services that we were providing in the ports, for example, the airport, the seaports, the
Hmm.
telecommunications, all the areas that the government had control of, because it started with government, those things should have been kept yet until when we reach a stage of development. These were important inputs that was needed for development, which means that we manage them business like efficiently, effectively, which I know we could have done. And then those are important inputs, essential inputs, especially into the industrialization, apart from the service sector like tourism and so. So
I
I strongly oppose it, but in the end, the majority had their way.
I hear you, Joe, but there's one thing, and let me say hi to Greg. We're pulling in directly, Greg.
Good evening.
Um, the telecommunication, because we lost a lot of money. We're still losing money on that. I don't think that government should run communications. They have too much control over it. If they pass some laws, I believe where they were able to eavesdrop and figure what you're doing, and there's too much political victimization and things like that. I think that should be run by a private entity. But that's just my thoughts on that. I don't like government having access to our communications and our private uh, um, thoughts and whatnot, if you will. I just don't. Greg, what's going on?
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah.
I I um I was listening in on you guys. For some reason, I had some problem getting in today. I don't know what was going on. Um,
Okay.
but I agree with you on some of those points, Mr. Chairman. But I do believe that with what Mr. Cowie is saying, that those critical infrastructure should have remained a part of the public services that that ran, and they should have been ran efficiently. They should have set up more like independent bodies that could be run with managers and not part of the government, but with all the funds and financing and management and overseen by the government. I thought that would have been a better way for both the telecommunication and the electricity. And because these companies, when they need to get financing, they still need to come back to the government to guarantee the loans they need. So it's kind of strange. It's kind of strange in how it works in terms of the government still have the liability on it and still have the public still have the responsibility for it, but then they acquire private companies with which I think doesn't serve us well. I don't mind how they break up now in some respect, that there's some public ownership of both those companies, both the telecom company, BTL, and the Belize Electricity Board, or BTL as they're called. I don't remember how they call it now.
BEL, the
BEL,
electricity company.
BEL.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the BEL. So I don't have a problem with how they are structured now. I think it was a mistake to have sold them off. And I hear your concern about eavesdropping and those type of things. But government have long reach. If they want to hear, even when it's a private company, they'll get to hear. So I'm not so fearful that that is the only way to circumvent government eavesdropping. I think we need laws to make sure that if they do it, because there are times when government need to know what's going on. If they do it, they get a proper court order to have that type of venture into our private affairs. That's how I see that.
All right. I was hoping you had come in a little earlier when we were talking about. I don't know if you heard the I was talking about the minister's speech that Joe had brought up last week that we had some reservations about with the exhibit room keep and whatnot. And I was saying
Yes,
that
yes,
after I heard, I don't know if you had heard the
yes, I
speech
did.
after, but
I did.
I didn't think that he was out of order in what he said,
Yeah.
and so
I agree. When I listened to what he said, he made some points. I mean, he clarified himself a lot better than he did before. And we did have reservation and concern about the way it was presented initially, and those were all valid on that point. I still
right.
have that, believe that. But when he came back and said that the exhibit room was managed by a private individual, not private, but a non police staff individual,
Yeah.
and things like that, and explained some of those things, it gave me a little bit more comfort with that he was not in some way just giving us information that he could have known just from past experience would not have been the true um, path of how things flow, of how the custody of things flow and disposed of.
I
So after he explained that, I said, okay, maybe there's something going on, and I think they said they are now going to put a sergeant in charge of that, which surprising me. In all exhibit room that I've seen in every movie, I've never been to one. It's always
a police officer,
a
huh?
police officer that is sworn by the oath of duty to act in that type of responsible and not private personnel. The
Well,
non-sworn officers,
I thought about that
individuals.
too, Gregory, when the minister was talking and said, well, the exhibit room keeper has been there for 10 years. And I'm saying,
Mhm.
well, for the last 13, it was the UDP. So apparently he
Mhm.
was put there by the UDP.
But
And
I don't think it matters politically. I
well,
don't like to drag those
let
things
me
in.
let me explain that though, because
Okay.
see, that exhibit room, people
Hmm.
from both parties are brought before the court from time to time. And in that position, I don't
Hmm.
think they will give anybody a position like that without some kisses for favor kind of move. So I would rather
Hmm.
see a police there as
Yeah.
opposed to an a politically appointed, because let's face it,
Yeah. Yeah.
positions like those are political appointments, and even if
Hmm.
they give them the job as such, um, but I don't, because they can always do something to affect the outcome of a case, you see,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that is my concern there.
But,
And
oh, sorry.
yeah,
Chairman, the case of the law enforcement, the police, you have the portion of the police force that is police, and you have what is called the administrative sector.
Hmm.
That portion of administration comes through the Public Service Commission,
Right.
and the one with the police comes through the Service Commission. So the person who would be responsible for managing those exhibits can, from my recollection, could be a person from administration, but who comes through the Public Service Commission as part of the permanent staff, not a politically appointed person.
yeah, okay, so that's your fact check on that one. um yeah, but we know how politics works in this country, don't we, Joe? I mean, what ought to be is not always what is. And the way they do it, for the most part, they'll find a way to get their people hired. And or
But
you
that is a very cynical way because that's saying to me that exhibit and stuff has no real validity because no real
security.
security if we dare to think that they'll always be serving a political master. That's very concerning, and I know there's some of it is true, and I know you're not just pulling that out the air, but that is a bigger issue, and that is something that will haunt us forever if that is the
We can only
if
hope.
the
We can only
yeah,
hope.
yeah, yeah.
And again, Belize is unique in a lot of ways when it comes to that. There's so much we need to fix.
Yeah.
and I don't think anybody can disagree with that. We have
Yeah.
a lot of things to
Well,
fix.
I think in unique, I don't think we're unique in corruption. Belize is unique,
Well,
but corruption is a thing that is pervasive
yeah,
throughout
true,
throughout
true,
all
true.
part of every
Can
society
I,
and every country.
can I add something here now to this issue of not for the police only, but generally in the public sector? And I think we discussed this before. Is that the public sector should have clearly defined by law, which some of it is, who will be members of the permanent establishment, who comes through the Public Service Commission and the
Yeah,
Service
yeah,
Commission and the judicial. Then, by law, they should have had those people who will be politically appointed, similar to
yes,
what the United States has. There
yes.
are 13,000 employees on the federal road. Those are come with the politicians. Now, we did not pass the law, and that is what we should have done. If we had done that,
Mhm.
then these things that are happening today, for example, in the BTB, as
Yeah.
a peripheral side of government, we
Mhm.
lost over $1 million simply because they gone to breach contracts. And in the breach of the contracts, they went to court, and those people won their cases.
Mhm. Mhm.
You had passed the law to define exactly
Yes,
what will be the political appointments, then you can
right.
reach that. We knew
Yeah.
then that you will come because of your political support. The rest, which is the permanent establishment, that's different. That must come through the Public
Yeah.
Service Commission.
Now the political appointees, are those the one who are the contract officers then?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we need to be careful. You see, when we say contract officers, we give the connotation as though all employees are under contract. But what they were trying to say when they said contract officers, these are the people who just begin to. There was the open vote. The open
Mhm.
vote was a system we inherited, yes, from the past. And the open vote was defined exactly what will be open vote. You're building the hummingbird. Now, the hummingbird will take maybe a year to build. That's an example because that was the case. So now you bring open vote workers through public works, but they don't want to build the road.
Mhm.
When the road is finished, these workers go.
Mhm.
So they are open vote. What we did, we bastardize it over the years.
Mm.
And then we begin to take the same open vote,
To do
bring it,
everything.
and then we call it contract officers. The thing is that everybody is on a contract, permanent and non-permanent. What you were to do was simple to say, these will be the political appointments. Define them and make them law. The rest will be the permanent established staff come through the Public Service Commission. And that's what we should have
Yeah.
done.
But
Yeah.
I don't know though that I agree with that they're all contract workers, permanent and not permanent. The contract workers usually
Well,
get
they,
a term. You have a contract for a period of time, and then you have to renew the contract. But the permanent ones, they have security of tenure, don't they?
But they are on a contract. Permanent officers are on a contract.
Well, okay, but
They are
yeah,
on a contract. Every one of them.
that
That's a
would
contract. It's just that the ones that you refer to as what we tend to call contract officers, we want to treat those ones as because they are supposed to be on a limited time contract, 4 years, 5 years, 3 years. But they are all contracts. When you enter the public service and you get a job and you sign, you are on a contract. That's a contract.
yeah. It's all contract. It's all
well,
one
all
is an
right.
open
Well,
contract and one is a fixed term contract.
I just yeah, it's a technical thing there.
Yes.
Let's move on because I wanted to discuss something about this recent killing, the death of an individual that was supposed to have been done accidentally. That's the report. But there's a question as to the granting a bail, and it's so similar to the killing of the police officer in San Pedro. And the only thing in that case, it was Ashcroft's daughter-in-law, which was a high-profile person. In this case, not so high-profile, but the daughter of a sitting councillor, very popular, gentleman, Albert Van, is a well-liked counselor. And there's in fact a new group that came up that call themselves Association of Defense Attorneys. Interesting term. I don't now, Joe. Is a country is no, you got me still thinking. Is a bail given to a person and I noticed lately there have been Supreme Courts being given to murderers or suspected murderers. Should the bail be given to this individual, and can that bail be given to this individual, as far as you know?
I would just say to you that it slipped me because I was to contact one of my lawyer friends and to get the real legal position. But just from what I have been listening to and following up over the years, it seems that you have to go to the magistrate court, as I think you would be very aware of, to be arraigned, no? To be judged.
Right.
And then, because of the type of the crime, for example, murder for sure, they cannot get bail. They have to go to the Supreme Court. And I believe that manslaughter by negligence is one of those. So the magistrate would not have been able to give bail. He'd have to go to the Supreme Court.
There are a lot of questions about this incident also, because they're saying I have not seen the full details of it, what happened, but she was in the back seat, he was in the front seat, and there are 4 people in the vehicle, but they have not listed, they're not given any clues who these people are, what are the full situation of this story, and I think that's something we need to follow closely. Is there a precedent set? Take for instance with the young lady that killed the police officer. She got bail, didn't she?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any problem with bail, because bail represents the right for a person to be out until they are convicted of a crime. And so as long as, I think the court makes the decision about bail based on, can the person afford it? Does the person represent a flight risk or such? Will they interfere with the witnesses and those type of things? And on those grounds, if the court can determine to its satisfaction that this person will show up to court and have the person have their day in court, I have no problem with setting bail.
You think even for murder?
Even for murder, because I know we discussed this last week, that there's a lot of thorough kind of investigation goes on and show, but you're not convicted. And so I don't have a problem with bail at any point in the process, as long as the individual is able to satisfy the court that they will be responsible. And responsible in this case means that they'll show up on that day when the case is called.
Post a bond and have somebody sign sureties and whatnot.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with bail. What I wanted to talk about a little bit is this Bolido thing. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, we had touched on it a bit.
Okay.
Trying to figure what do you think should happen with the Bolido?
Well, I was kind of. I don't have a problem. I know that the way that it is now run, it has stepped up a lot in technology and stuff. So if the government was to take it over, I would think that would be the way to do it. But I am concerned also, because when you break somebody's contract, then you get on the hook for millions of dollars.
You sound like Joe. You're taking Joe's storyline now. Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, because that's our concern. Because
it is a legitimate concern. It is legitimate. It
comes back to the citizens. So whatever benefit the government might be thinking they are getting from managing it in terms of having the revenue come to them, which I don't know why it went to private hands in the first place. I think the government, well, at least at this point, they showed us how it could be technologized and implemented in ways that makes it more efficient, more trustworthy, and that kind of stuff, right? So I have no problem with that portion of it, but I'm concerned that we're exposing ourselves if this is not done properly. Right?
I wouldn't want to get caught up in a Dominion type lawsuit. But when you say more can be more confident of the
Outcome and stuff.
legitimacy of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, because there's somebody was interviewed on TV and he was saying, well, listen, Brad's got 10 minutes after everybody done buy him, because a computer, he could look on the records and know exactly who buy what and who not buy what. So I
You
don't.
could see that, but you don't. But the numbers are played in public, and if the ball and everything is set up properly, and they have to weigh those balls and things like that, and they're displayed in the case and they're shuffled around. Then I think from the way I seen it being set up to draw, I didn't see much chance of someone doing something kind of shady. There might be, and I'm not a expert in it, but as I look at it, it looks like it is a random draw to me. But there are things people could do to make a ball more susceptible, but still,
We've heard the stories.
Yeah.
But
sorry, I don't know if you all read the Lotteries Committee complaints, the points that he cited where there was a breach of the contract.
Okay.
it was I didn't
No,
see that.
I didn't.
Was
I heard that there was I heard there was some issues with.
So is this
the
going to
contract.
court also, Joe?
So what happened in the Lotteries Committee, in the audit that was done, found that they had breached certain elements of the contract.
Okay.
And then they brought to their notice of the breaches and they gave
Okay.
them time to remedy it.
Okay.
Apparently, they did not remedy
Okay.
it. And they
Well, that's the
decided,
first thing. If there's a breach, you need to notify them, and then they need to be given a chance to
Right.
respond to it and to make corrections. So if they didn't do that, then that makes it more valid. But I'm
And it-
hoping that, yeah, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
sorry, it says on that the government acted. Now, I listened to the former prime minister who gave the contract on his government, who happened to be the defending counsel now.
Mhm.
And he's saying that they are going to the court, but just for a declaration that the Brad's company is no longer interested in even trying to get back the contract. So that's how to do. They're not going to fight for that.
Okay.
So they are going for a declaration. No, he didn't go into details.
But that doesn't mean he won't sue for breach of contract, even if he doesn't want it. So that, right? That
I'm saying that if you're going for a declaration, you're not sue yet. You're going for a declaration. Once he gets a declaration that favors Brad's, then he go for the suit. He go for the
yeah.
Then he
Yeah.
go for the That's what
Yeah.
I think he's doing.
Interesting. We've had some record heat in Belize. As a result, we've had a number of fires. As a matter of fact, 2 resorts burnt. Last week,
Oh.
the popular Bacab resort was burnt. And I think the guy is even thinking about not even rebuilding.
Is that the one in Boom area?
That's the one in Boom area. Then there's
Yeah,
one in Orange Walk, Mayan Garden, that supposedly yesterday caught fire and burnt to the ground also. Then there's a house
Yeah, in
yesterday
College, right?
with
I
the
saw
one with that mother and 2 children.
Yes.
That is man, that's tragic. I can't imagine getting that news.
Yeah.
Do
you know what caused those 2 fires at those resorts? Do we know?
No, we don't. I know, and I know this one. The fire department suggesting the one at this house was electrical, most likely electrical, which is a problem. A lot of people, and I don't know if we don't need to do something about that. Okay, there are a lot of people with these illegal connections.
Yeah.
It's almost cold-hearted for a poor person who can't afford it, but maybe that's a part of the social
safety net
consideration, that has to be brought in.
You know, at some time ago, I remember in the old days, they used to give poorer people a connection that was unmetered or was set at a certain rate, so you didn't have to pay, but you also had some responsibility to only have so many outlets in your dwelling. You know, you only had like 3 receptacle and 5 lights or something like that.
Well,
it's critical.
They still have the social rate, which is the lower rate for low income.
Okay. Well, you know, you can only do so much in those kind of things. But as an electrical engineer, I could tell you that throughout the world, well, not throughout the world, but in the United States, 31% of fires owe their origin to the electrical system. So that's not a unique thing. It's not an uncommon thing that electrical outlets and stuff.
You mean
and
even in homes
connection.
that are properly wired? You're saying
Yes. But it happens.
31%.
Yeah, 31% of fires owe their origin to the electrical
That's a
system.
lot. That's a
It's
high.
it's high. It's very high. It's very high. I mean, I did a design for a in Santa Barbara some years ago for a student graduate housing project, and then all of a sudden I heard on the news that there was a fire right in this new building that I had just completed, and then I get to find out that what had happened. One of the students put their desk against the wall, plugged into a receptacle outlet on the wall, and the outlet, the connection wire got chafed and caused the fire while they were out.
Man,
So that percentage of 31, I find that indeed, I wouldn't want to say shocking, but I'm very surprised because I understand, and Mr. Morrison, you are in that field. I understand that the United States, when it comes to setting its standards generally for goods, that electrical supplies is one of them, including
Yes.
fans and other appliances.
Yes.
That some of those things that were coming out of China would not be allowed to enter the United States.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Actually, China makes about 3 different levels of products, and you have to be careful when you get them. Some of their products are, like you said, are not suitable to be placed anywhere. But they sell them to countries in Latin America,
they're cheaper.
Africa, and the Caribbean, and those places. They don't have any proper UL or testing standards. And then they sell some that are UL listed, and they sell some others that are European label listed. So you have to be very careful when you get electrical products from China, and to make sure that you're getting good equipment that will be able to stand the heat for running. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, but other than to be pretty much aware.
The thing is that
I was going to say one more thing. Before
go
you
ahead,
jump
go
in.
ahead, please.
So I think then it's the responsibility of our government when people are ordering stuff, electronics and fans and things like that, that he's listing, that those things meet our national standard.
That's right.
Do we have one? Here,
Well,
please.
we need to adopt one if we don't have one.
Doesn't do we don't, but I agree we should adopt one. I understand that fire with the house, apparently they had some extension cord, and there was some problem with the extension cord. It seemed that they couldn't take the load or something, and it is believed that is what caused that fire. No, this is not to me conclusive, but what it is telling you, I know of homes, one not far from where I live, was burnt down simply because of a fan that was left on.
Yeah.
Because we are getting some poor fans. Quickly, I bought a fan for $95. When I went to a Chinese shop in Placentia, coincidentally, I saw a fan which looked identical to it. When I asked how much for it, it was $65 from China. But that was an inferior fan. But what they did, they mimic the other fan. They make it look the same like the other one.
But this is the problem, Joe. They copy it down to the label, down to the name, everything, the logo.
That's right.
I don't know how they get away with that. Seriously.
Well, they were getting away because back then, and maybe still now, the American manufacturers, remember, was moving over to China. And they were violating the international copyright laws, and they knew it. But the United States never pressed against it because they were benefiting.
Yeah.
Remember China at the time? That's why they said today, when Russia, some years ago, was trading with America with $2 billion a year, China got rich from American consumers.
Oh yeah.
They were trading at $2 billion a day.
There's a lot of the Chinese are making some strides and really copying just about everything, and I understand the U.S. being concerned about that, and electoral rights, property, and whatnot. But China tends to make them cheap enough for poor folks to afford.
Yeah,
Poor
yeah.
folks cannot afford to have the kind of standard of safety that rich people do, and that's the problem with that.
Yeah, but there need to be a minimum level of safety. You know, even when you get products in America, they have different grades. They have things they call residential, commercial, and then they have products they call hospital and industrial grade. So you could each of them meets a certain minimum safety standard. But when you just get like Joe was saying that the cord caused the fire, the cord caused the fire in the brand new residential housing building that I had done, because somehow the desk was sitting up against it, and through friction and vibration, the cord got chafed. Nobody was there again, like in the house residence, and a fire started and spread throughout the entire unit and burned down, like it was during a summertime, and burned destroyed like 3 or 4 of the apartments. You know,
So
before.
here's my question there, because this has always puzzled me, and I know they do thorough investigations and whatnot. But if nobody's home and the
Mhm,
wire chafed, but after the
mhm,
fire, all the wires are burnt anyway.
mhm.
How does one determine that to be the cause of fire?
Oh, these forensic guy. There's a flash point and a hot point in all fire, and through some type of forensic method, they could tell you pretty much where that fire started in a space, because the severity of the damage to where it starts is usually going to be greater than other places in the residence. So if a
Yeah,
fire start,
I'm sure
yeah,
it's
at a cord, yeah, it
yeah.
melts and differently than how it would start, how it would behave in other places throughout the space. They're
Yeah,
pretty smart. It's a pretty tough science.
we're having a lot of fires really, and it's because even along the road, the bushfires and whatnot. But I saw something in the
But
U.S.
I also want to say a lot of fires that I know in the past in Belize has been arson too. So we should never always take our eyes off that. And
True.
I don't think we always have the best technology to kind of analyze that type of stuff. But that has been a history of Belize in the past, that we have had a lot of arson fires.
There's a suspicion that the one at Pacab was arson, and the
Yeah.
one I thought so. But I noticed in the U.S., Gregory, some dust storms that will cause some major pileups. What's going on with that? Is America being hit by some plagues here?
Well, dust storms are very common for some of the Midwest areas.
It
Um,
happens every year, then, like that.
well, not every year, but it happens with some frequency. I would say every 4 or 5 years, there are different wind pattern that causes it, and that's why they have some type of agricultural, where they do some type of practices to make sure that the topsoil. There was times in America when they lose topsoils in many states.
Yeah.
The dust was 50 years ago, where the dust was just so bad it blows away 3, 4, 6 inches of topsoil from entire states into other areas. So it is common, and that has caused them to change some of the farming practices to kind of make sure that they don't lose. They put buffers and things like that to make sure they don't lose topsoil and things like that. But it is a problem. One day I remember I had my office in Palm Springs once, when I had my own office, and we had a severe windstorm. Sometimes the wind blows out here 50, 60 miles an hour, and if you know Palm Springs, it's just granular sand, like beach sand, almost like that.
Okay. Dust
And
really does.
yeah. The sand was just blowing from one side to the next on the road. And I saw this car that was parked. Someone ran out of gas, or I don't know what happened. Their car broke down and they parked on the side. And the entire side that was exposed to the sun was just sandblasted completely off all the paint.
Wow.
It
Wow.
happens. It happens throughout. I don't think that would have been the case in the Midwest where it's more dirt, black dirt, topsoil, but in California and in Palm Springs particularly where it's that granular sun, it just kind of totally blasted the whole thing, and it piled up in front of the car. I don't know how long the car was parked there, but I drove there regularly, and I didn't see it like 3-4 days. There was probably about 3-4 feet of sand piled up in front of the car where it was parked there.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah,
Another,
yeah.
yeah, I see also over there that your guns are still at work. Another mass shooting there in Texas. What's going on with that, man?
Oh man, I didn't hear. I didn't. I've been busy the last the last week or so with work, and
Yeah,
I didn't get a chance. I hardly watch TV recently. The bit of news I get is when I'm driving in the car from home to work for the last
yeah,
couple
but
of
this
weeks.
was a guy who killed, including an 8-year-old child, I believe it was,
Oh,
a
oh.
whole family because they were upset that he was shooting
Oh,
off his
yes.
gun. I
Yes. I
mean,
did hear about that. I think 5 people got killed in that incident. Yeah, I did hear
yeah,
about that.
yeah. With
Yeah.
that, this is it, it's. I mean, I has anybody come up with a reasonable idea or reason why these mass shootings are happening? Is there anything? Because it's getting all over the place. It's prevalent.
Yeah.
There
Well,
must.
there are a lot of sick people, so and you have guns in their hand and they just feel entitled. Our society is a lot that feels entitled, and if you make somebody a little bit mad and they have a gun, the first thing they want to do is come over and shoot you. It's just kind of crazy
I
that
hope it's not just a little bit mad. Because
well,
that,
well,
that
if you just go and tell somebody don't shoot their gun in the yard,
yeah, that yeah.
it's stopping my kid from sleeping, and then you turn around and go over there and shoot up the people. I don't know what to say about that. But first thing, I wouldn't have gone over and tell somebody with a gun that. I would have called the police, let them deal with it. But
Um,
maybe
the thing that this very issue of gun has been so polarizing politically.
Mhm.
I can accept that you should continue to allow people to draw freely and unrestrictedly be able to buy a gun and any gun. I think that they should begin to look very seriously, and this might come through again some demonstrations, that you have to go to that background check.
Yeah.
The people who are doing these things certainly are not people of a sound mind in most cases.
Mm.
I would say that the background check will not stop it, but it could alleviate it. And
Mhm.
also to control the type of weapons you'll be allowed to sell or to buy. Don't you think that they should take a serious look, apart from what else you can do to try to change the behavior of the society generally?
Well, I do believe in that they should have background check. I check on getting weapons. I think that should be a mandatory thing. I think there should be a occasional, not occasional, but a periodic update of your historical information and entitlement to continue to own that gun. But I really don't
Psychological
have. I
psychological
don't.
status also, don't you think?
I, I mean, I don't know how you'd evaluate psychological, but because I I don't
Crazy
know about
people,
psychological. Oh no, I don't think that's what I'm saying.
crazy people should not own
Yeah,
guns.
no, crazy people should not own, but that's different. But I don't mean that every gun owner should.
Undergo a test.
Uh, but you there should be an something. There should be something. Someone rather than just being able to go and buy a gun, someone
Hmm.
should qualify you to have that gun. Either the gun seller. That is hard because guns are allowed to trade through private hands, sale through private hands. But
Right, right.
I'm thinking, particularly if you're buying it from a shop or someplace, that person should have some responsibility that I'm selling this person this gun, and this person to me does not seem to be a threat to anyone or to themselves. I think that should be a standard. I think that should even be a standard for private sale, particularly when the person just buy the gun and goes out and shoots someone. If you buy a gun from a private person 3 years ago and then you go out and shoot somebody, after 3 years, then. But I think until you could be able to hold some people accountable for that type of sale, it will forever go that the crazy people get the gun. But truly, like Joe was saying, I don't have any problem with gun sale, and I think I've said this 20 times before. I believe you should be able to buy whatever gun you want to buy, as long as you prove in those regards that you have of a sound mind and that you will not hurt someone or will not hurt yourself. And such, I think you should be entitled to purchase a
But
weapon.
while we are on that gun issue, let's look at the one that happened last week with the gentleman Canton and the lady Vaughn.
Mhm.
I know the gentleman Canton very well. He works at the credit union, and I had many conversations with him.
Mhm. Mhm.
No, I suppose he must have had the one that had the gun, and it
Mhm.
is believed to be a licensed gun.
Mhm.
No, I like the guy's a nice fellow. I wonder if he should have had a gun from the way he behaved with it.
Yeah. Well, first thing, if you have a licensed weapon, you shouldn't be giving your gun to any other person.
That's what-
You shouldn't be displaying it to them. You
I
shouldn't be
believe we are
handing it to them.
suffering from. We have the requirement for the background check, but again, to be problem and non-compliance with it.
Yeah. But
Because
no, but I'm
people
saying
to have
how,
guns that shouldn't.
But how do
yeah,
you prevent something like that?
but how the gun got into the hand of the female that shot him? That means he must have handed his gun to her, or his gun fell and she picked it up, and or it
Apparently,
was put someplace and she picked it up and it discharged.
he put it on the armrest. But what they were doing, I don't know. And there were four people in the car,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
the gun was supposedly cocked.
Oh,
He was on a mission there. I don't know.
yeah.
I can't explain that. I'm trying to picture it in my mind how it might have
Mhm.
happened. In
Yeah.
particular, she being in the back seat. Did she shoot
Mhm.
him through the car seat?
Mhm.
You know? But because if she got shot from the front, if he got shot from the front, then there are some
Mhm.
serious questions that need to be asked.
And the
Yeah.
question that needs to be asked is that if you have a gun, you have a license, that gun should have been concealed. What are you doing with it? Was somebody
But
looking
you
for
shouldn't be
something?
playing with it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what
Put
I'm
that
saying.
thing, you should have
You
it out
shouldn't.
period.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, yeah,
To
yeah.
me, that was a
But
case of, I mean, a nice person gone and a poor child
yeah,
now is, they
yeah,
don't know what will happen to his life. But look at that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No,
But
it's
yeah,
tough.
because
Gun
at the end of
incident
the
and accidents are tough to deal with. You know, for
but
the
guns
families and for the people that survived it.
guns I hear you when you're saying Gregory, but I think guns has to be taken more seriously than they are. I don't mean I wouldn't ban guns totally. I certainly would ban assault weapons, but I think even the people who have handguns for protection ought to have some kind of training, some kind of
Oh yeah,
they have
yeah.
to go through and maybe having shooting galleries. You know, there
Hmm.
was a time I wanted to open a shooting gallery. I was thinking about it before I
Hmm.
got ill actually because I was thinking about an indoor shooting gallery that people could, and because I realized that there are a lot of people walking around with guns who
Hmm.
don't have anything to do with them, don't have an opportunity to shoot them,
Hmm.
um, don't have enough training in them. And what I
Hmm.
wanted to do was to get a gun expert to be able to tell people about their weapon, how to break it down, how to clean it, how to keep it in shape and whatnot. Because if you don't clean your gun and you try to use
Hmm.
it, it might just, you snap. You're gonna have a
Yeah, yeah,
problem.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think there's a lot that has to be done if we are gonna keep allowing people to have gun, which I don't think we can stop at this point. You certainly can't. It'll be a tough thing, even in a small country like Belize.
Yeah. It's like TV, right?
Like people, yeah, right. So I don't think it's that prevalent. I hope not. But it's certainly there are a lot of people with guns out there, and a lot of people with guns that don't know anything about gun, and they must
Yeah.
know that just having a gun is. In fact, there are a lot of burglaries that have happened just to get a gun.
Yes,
So when
yes,
you
yes.
should not be flashing your gun first of all, because you're giving up your element of surprise
Right.
to start with. If what you have it for is self-defense, which I can understand, but if it's not, if it's just to show that you were so tough and whatnot, I have a gun, and you're gonna be so careless with it. A person like that should not have a gun, and I agree with you on that. He obviously did not have the frame of mind that should have allowed him to have a gun. Right.
No, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. There's a matter that came up on the news also lately. An area representative, actually, a fellow I like, Oscar Requena, had an accident down south.
Yes.
But by the time the police got to the scene, the vehicle was gone and he was gone. Now, this is something that we have to look at carefully. He should have undergone test. Sobriety test. That is necessary.
Yes.
I really don't think he should be charged. I believe he should be. He left the scene of an accident. Nobody got hurt as such, but it was an accident. In fact, he even destroyed a lamppost on a stand and created some
cracked it.
and whatnot.
Yes.
So this is
Who was driving?
He was Oscar Requena.
Okay. Oscar was driving. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but apparently he was out. He's telling the police that he was doing constituency business.
And someone came in the road, and that's always the excuse, right? Someone came.
Yeah.
And it could be valid too. It could be valid that somebody popped up and you swerve, you serve. But why leave the scene?
People know, and people saw what happened. People will talk.
Yeah.
So apparently the word is that he was drunk. We'll never know because he didn't take the test when in fact he should have. So that in itself ought to be an offense.
Oh yeah, that should be leaving the scene of an accident when the damage is so extensive. That's always a little shaky because they said that if the damage is less than $700 or something like that, you could just pull on and go and make a report. But when you destroy your vehicle completely and break a power pole, it is serious, and it's tough. It's tough. How we deal with these things is going to just. A lot of times, I think some of these things should be dealt with by the political party and leadership that governs and manages these people to say, hey, this happened and this is your responsibility, and there's some cost to that. But I don't know if we hold, or if politically the parties and leadership of those parties hold the individuals accountable. So far, they have not on either political party.
This is a big problem. Because we tend to almost hold them on a status of untouchable.
Exactly.
And it shouldn't be. They should, in fact, be more touchable than anybody else because
more accountable.
I think he was very poor in his discretion. If you want to go and evoke the spirits, carry a driver.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, can they have a driver? Correct. So
of course.
Yeah. And but I've seen one minister. I saw him and his driver getting drunk, and they were both drunk. And I'm saying this is ridiculous. I knew the guy, and I said to the guy, "You can get drunk, but you can't get drunk. You didn't drive." And then, but no, I mean, we're so lax, until something happens, then we realize, boy, we have a problem,
Yeah.
So it's a tough situation. My friend, George did not show up tonight. I wonder what happened.
I didn't get the notice until real late. I don't know what was up with Mr. Young, but I didn't get the notice until real late to join. I didn't come through until like 7:00, and then I was trying to call a couple of people. I tried to call George, he didn't answer, so I guess something was going on.
To his credit, I did get it early enough. I got, and it was sent by messenger, so maybe it arrived late because
I sent a group chat. So
I saw that.
Yeah, send it to everybody at the same time.
The same way, the same way you always send it.
Yeah.
Oh, mine did not I didn't see mine until 7 o'clock when I
Wow.
went searching for it.
Yeah, that must have been,
Yeah.
You didn't get a notification that it was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I got mine, and I'm
Okay.
happy that you guys are on. I don't know where I'm the George. Because we're supposed to meet up and link at some point. I have not heard from him. I hope he's all right.
Yeah.
Because
I thought we were gonna have some guests tonight too.
yeah, we were supposed to have this fellow Edmund Castro, but he called in to say he couldn't make it. He was otherwise engaged, and that would have been an interesting.
He said next week Wednesday though.
Okay.
He's gonna take time out.
Yeah, and then we're supposed to have two people, not Mr.
Nunes.
And
Nunes had problems with his connection too.
Okay.
Yeah, which Nunes would that have been?
Joseph.
Okay. I don't. It doesn't really. I don't. Do I know him? I might know him.
You might have known of him. I don't know if you really know him. I think you know Mr. Joe Cowie.
He is in Belize. A guy from
he's
Belize.
In Belize. Yeah, he's in Belize.
All right.
He's in Dangrig, as a matter of fact. I think.
Okay.
I think
so that could be an issue too.
Yeah.
He know you.
I probably know him.
Yeah, he's a cool dude.
He's connected to Marshall, man. Nunes.
Yeah, he kind of upset with the PUP situation, I think. So that's
that may be a good show, because put poor Joe in trouble. You got Edmund Castro and he. But Joe,
he's a PUP loyalist. He's a PUP loyalist, but he just kind of like.
But he upset with the party.
Yeah. So I wanted him to come on so bad too.
I have to find out. I have to find out the club, because I want membership myself. I know all that happy, you know. So, but no. I mean, we have to start to approach things from a non-partisan, less political angle.
We need to see things for what they are.
Exactly, regardless of who is involved.
Yeah. That's the only way we're going to make advancement on the country.
I think
that's
so.
The only way. The
and we have to hold our elected officials, they hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they do what they're supposed to do, and stop look the other way when they do things, because they want precedent that's one set, hard to stray from, man.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you are getting into a very serious topic again, because let me say this. I come back to tell you that until when the people take our democracy serious and participate, the simple, the ballot.
Yeah. Yes.
We will continue to have these people who we delegate authority to, but assert it as power and want to lord it over us.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't matter whether it's PUP or UDP, because I believe in doctrines and tenets of a movement, not the particular person who leads at the time. If he shares the same support for the doctrines and tenets and the philosophical anchor, we will be together.
Yes.
So, to me, I have always said, nobody can put me out of no PUP, because none of them owns it. We are PUP not by virtue of supporting any particular person, but by virtue of supporting the doctrines and the tenets of the movement. So I have all right, and I think we all should. Those who subscribe to be UDPs, I believe that it is good to belong to a movement, but try to be as objective.
Yes.
Try to be as dispassionate as possible. Try to be as professional and be critical about your own movement. Those of us who sit back and because of personal gains, we allow these things to happen.
And that's most of the reason.
Yes, it has too much self-interest to the detriment of others. So I think that this belief that, boy, I don't want PUP or I don't want UDP, the reason why some of them stick to it is because they are looking for their own interests. And what is happening, gentlemen, and I think we should admit it, this patronage system has gone too far.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed.
It has gone too far. Now, there are people who believe that they can hold their position in government and they can retain it at the polls through patronage.
Mhm.
And it was done before.
Yep.
It was done through patronage. You have experience. You have Mayor Daley. I always remember him of Chicago. He held it for 5 years under
Yeah.
a patronage system. But this patronage system is destroying our country.
Yeah. 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 It doesn't give it any breathing room to see anything. Everything is so tangled up in family or or friendship that we're suffering, and there's no chance for growth and development.
Joe,
Uh,
what do you say to people who suggest that the father of the nation, George Price, actually is the one who started that patronage system? How do you respond to that?
Um, what he did to me was not a patronage system. A patronage system is something that is well structured, well organized. For you to maybe put across the table $1 quietly, it's not necessarily a patronage system. If I see you really in need, genuine,
It's a social conscience then.
I don't have to be a politician. But if you come around, and we know all of that, if somebody come around that you feel is genuinely in need, I think we have an obligation as a human being to help the person.
If you
well,
can.
let me speak something to that. Let me speak something, because you see, everything have a genesis, and that's where it grew from. Yes, and it's not unique to Belize. It's big across America, and it was done a lot in the South in the early days. The buying of votes is started with the old Billy boys going and getting a drink the day before and the day after from whoever the sheriff or whoever they wanted to elect. But but I think in Belize, we're such a small country that when the the premier started that system, it became the glue of how we set in motion for what has happened. Yes, the way he started it was small and simple, but it is the genesis of what has evolved into now you don't get this until you vote for me, and you only get this if you vote for me.
Well,
So
Gregory, I think there's a big difference though
Yeah.
in that Mr. Price would carry some change wrong in a pocket and give people out of his money, out of it. Now the patronage is coming from
Well, that's what I said,
the
but that's
public
the
funds.
genesis of it. That's the
So
genesis of it. I'm saying that from that little bit, because there should have always been a system where there was a social structure to help those indigent people. And I know, yeah, he was giving it out of his money, he says, and he may have well been doing it that way, right? But he might have been walking around with $1,000 from that he gets from the treasury. I don't know. I don't know how he did it, but it is the
eh,
genesis of what has evolved to what it is today, and
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. But
yeah,
but
sorry,
he
sorry.
practiced it. He practiced it small time, but
I
it has
disagree with that.
spread. It has spread to big time now.
The Genesis concept, of course, will have a play. It begins with planting the seed and it grows. The point I want to make is in the case of Mr. Price, obviously he had his way of how he would discriminate, which I would not agree with. But Mr. Price earned his popularity. He became a well known person
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
of the love he showed for the people, the sincerity he showed for them right across. So
I
he never
agree. I agree. I agree.
never need to pay off a vote. They will support
No, I
him.
don't. No, I don't think he was paying for vote. I didn't mean it from that respect that he was
Yeah,
paying for
he
vote.
would do it. He was a very
Yeah,
well known, well liked man because he was
yeah,
sincere
yeah.
and he
I
brought
don't
a lot
mean.
to the country.
I think he loved Belize. He
Yeah,
certainly loved Belize.
and he was
Yeah,
genuine. He had his faults, of course. You can't
Oh, we
neglect
all
that.
do. We
Yeah,
all do.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think he really believed in the principle of solidarity. I think he was a socialist by virtue of the gospel imperative, which we all were on and still am.
hmm
But you speak about the policy and the principle of the PUP, and I think that's what it was. You know that it was a social. There's a social conscience there, and I think
Not
that's the big
anymore.
difference. Well, it's there. It's the founding principle is there, still there. It's not, Joe says, not adhered to. It's
Oh,
not
oh, no,
practiced.
yeah. No,
But I think that
I like one George Price quote. We believe in Christian social justice, not that the rich shall have more, shall have less, but that the poor shall have more. I think that is so fundamentally how they get more is always the question of how to do that, right? But that is such a powerful idea that I love it.
that you
And I
know
was
what?
citing to the chairman earlier of my experience in what he had done, because I was 8 years old when the party was founded. But by the time, we reached adult suffrage, I was 12 years old. And by the time we reached self-government, man, I was already ready. But what I could say is, he did in fact put in place movements in this country to liberate our people. In the case of, as I said before, another repeat, what were cane cutters became cane farmers. What were fishermen diving to sell their fish to Lucifer, $1 octopus bag, became very wealthy through the cooperative movement. And these were all things that I thought was uplifting this country. But again, unfortunately, when we reached the so-called promised land, many of the people never did get the promissory note. They didn't deliver the promissory note as it should have.
Yeah,
promise-
they abandoned the ship for greed. Individual greed.
I'm missing, unfortunately, something here, because we did reach the promised land. I missed it. I'm still on the bus. I started trying to get down yet. So, guys,
The promised land, chairman, but what happened?
Yeah.
Moses wasn't able to get us there. I mean, Joshua.
yeah, you see? Listen, we're out of time. Thanks, guys, for once again being with us here this evening. Thanks for those who listen.
I know we could do better. I know we could do better.
See what?
Small X, fall big tree, walk away from trouble. That is a victory. Ceasefire, we no picnic. Put down the guns and land on the ABC. What's going on? You just pull that trigger. What's going on? You're excited to kill another brother. Bop, 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 bop. Another shot boss. Another youth murder. Bop, 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 bop. Tears running from the eyes of another mother. No bad man there. No bad man there. No bad man. No bad man there. You will get burned when you mess with fire. No bad man there. No bad man. No bad man there. No bad man. No bad man there. Be a leader, not a follower. My opinions, our generation mess up the young kids them. They don't have no respect. Mommy and daddy store with the bell from them. No lesson learned. Them all sell out them goddamn friends. And anything that isn't trend, they will follow that right up to the end. It get worse when they take God. Hey, out of the school. And all them politics, politicians think they could take every fool. Life means nothing to others now. Human just cruel. And everybody in power. Hey, take poor people from you. Your time is ticking. Tick, 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 tick. Like a time bomb. Tick, 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 tick. One day I mess with the wrong one. Then tick, 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 tick. Put down the guns. Then no tick, 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 tick. What's going on? You just pull that trigger. What's going on? You're excited to kill another brother. Bop, 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 bop. Another shot boss. Another youth murder. Bop, 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 bop. Tears running from the eyes of another mother. No bad man there. No bad man there. No bad man. No bad man there. You will get burned when you mess with fire. No bad man there. No bad man. No bad man there. No bad man. No bad man there. Be a leader, not a follower. Hey, hey. Me singing for the youths them. Put down the guns I'm stunning, boy. I'm a stunner, boy. I'm switching lanes, flying through, call me Wonder Boy. I'm Fleet, boy. I'm a D, boy. Got the glow, you could call me Bruce Lee, Roy. I hopped out, some cherry shit. Show your titties like you doing it for Jerry, bitch. I pimp hard, lean in my cup. In the sand, getting dubs from a bubble butt. I was on one, now I'm on two. I'm rolling, man. Life is beautiful. I'm stone cold, call me Austin. I'm busy chasing money and flossing. I'm ballin', my tens clean. Moonwalking on the track, call me Billie Jean. It's regular, the summer's mine. I'ma transform like the 14th prime. Shout out to Ghetto Swag Radio. This your boy Young Magic. I'm stunning, boy. I'm a stunner, boy. I'm switching lanes, flying through, call me Wonder Boy. I'm Fleet, boy. I'm a D, boy. Got the glow, you could call me Bruce Lee, Roy. I hopped out, some cherry shit. Show your titties like you doing it for Jerry, bitch. I pimp hard, lean in my cup. In the sand, getting dubs from a bubble butt. I was on one, now I'm on two. I'm rolling, man. Life is beautiful. I'm stone cold, call me Austin. I'm busy chasing money and flossing. I'm ballin', my tens clean. Moonwalking on the track, call me Billie Jean. It's regular, the summer's mine. I'ma transform like the 14th prime.
Apex predator, so treat me like a barracuda from outer Belize water.